crossed.
Given the distance. Okay. Okay, so Rohini Devasher is joining us from India. She's a media artist active in multiple media, video painting, printmaking, drawing, and so on. Her work has been shown at many international venues. I forgot to say at the beginning, if you go to lasertalks.com, you will see the program of the evening. You will get, well, first of all, a link to their website, and you will see a much longer presentation. These are all speakers who have worked in so many different on so many different projects in so many different places. Okay, Rohini, without further ado, let me ask the audience, is the audio now good? For who joined late, we had to use my laptop because I couldn't make the idea of the room working. So, yeah, we're doing what we can. Okay, Rohini, the
Great.
podium is yours. You can share your screen. Let me get out of the...
Super. Thank you so much. So just so everybody can see this.
So far, so good.
Okay,
Perfect.
Second, I think.
Almost
I'm just going to go back to the top. Yeah, almost perfect. Yeah. It's always something. Okay, 1 second. Now can we see this? This is the first screen. Everybody can see this? Yes, awesome. So
yes.
Thank you so much, Piero. I am so delighted to be here. I'm going to jump right in because there's not much time. Also, in the interests of time, I will be reading. I hope that's okay. So just to briefly give you a little bit of a background, my name is Rohini Devasher. I'm an artist and amateur astronomer. I'm based in Delhi. And my work looks at the role of observation, the observer, and the field or the site. And each of these categories entails a multiplicity of practices, both of looking. So how is attention focused? What is looked at? How is it looked at? And why? And of seeing. So ways of describing, collecting, mapping, sorting, and measuring. And I'm interested in the people, the sites, the forms, and the modes of interaction that observation entails, because no observation is ever entirely unmediated. And at the core of this is a sort of recognition of the entanglement of relationships between things in the natural world. So human, non-human, nature, culture, perception, production, but also a recognition of the deep strangeness and the weirdness of the spaces that are created by, the collisions and the fusions of all of these. So my art and curatorial practice maps the complexities of sort of time and space through two specific frames, wonder and the strange. And both of these frames in turn sort of encompass different areas of research and practice, some of which overlap, these intersect, they collide. What I'd like to do today is to take you through 4 works under two under each of these frames to give you a sense of the lay of the land, if you like. So the research for a lot of this has taken the form of interviews, extensive interviews with fellow amateur astronomers, astrophysicists, historians of science, and visits to research spaces, eclipse chases, and observatories such as those you're looking at on the screen right now. And I've also worked a lot with fellow amateur astronomers to try and think about what it would look like to try and more carefully think through observation through practice, right? So these spaces, the scientists, the people that I've been working with, for me, are a kind of a conduit to some of the most fundamental questions we can ask as a species. What is the nature of the universe? How do we map its resolution? How do we construct the environment? How does that environment in turn shape us? What is the position of the observer, the amateur astronomer, the artist? How do we place our process and methodologies within the frame of the vast and varied histories, technologies, and techniques of observation, of making sense of reading and recording the Earth and the universe of which we are a part, somehow all at the same time being aware of our own position and our own technological limitations. So I'd like to begin with the first frame. And in the current climate, and it feels like it's been like this for a while, it seems to be futile to be seen to be making a case for wonder. But Sara Ahmed, who is the scholar who, in her book, The Cultural Politics of Emotion, has said of wonder, wonder energizes the hope of transformation and the will for politics. Wonder as an affective relation to the world is about seeing the world that one faces and is faced with as if for the first time. What is the status of this as if? To see the world as if for the first time is to notice that which is there, is made, has arrived, or is extraordinary. Wonder is about learning to see the world as something that does not have to be, as something that came to be over time and with work. As such, wonder involves learning. So, this is something that I've been interested in for a long time. So what I'd like to do is I'm just going to share two pieces from my recent solo, which in fact was on view in San Francisco in January and February of this year at the Minnesota Street Project Foundation and at Gallery Wendy Norris. So the title of the solo was 100,000 Suns. And the highlight, or if you like, the focus of the entire show was a new 4-channel synced film installation that I've just made, which sort of brings into conversation the geometry of the Earth, the Moon, and the Sun, alongside conjunctions of event and site. So at the heart of this work is a very special space. This is a physical space, the Kodai Canal Solar Observatory in Tamil Nadu in the south of India, where every day, weather permitting since 1904, the staff at the observatory have recorded images of our sun. So this data, which spans almost 120 years, comprises of, in then 2019, 157,000 distinct portraits of our nearest star. And these observations range from hand-drawn sunspots on small discs of paper to glass photographic plates to H-alpha and calcium K images. So, each of these tens of thousands of suns are archetypes for me in a sense. Each is a conjunction of direct observation and experience on one hand, information and data on the other. So what I did with the film, with this work, is that I worked with the observations which are held at the archive at Kodai Canal in conjunction with my own data sets. So that means interviews, it means videos that I recorded at Kodai Canal during an eclipse. It means interviews over the past 12 years with eclipse chasers. It also, historians of science and my own chases. So I've chased 3 eclipses, 2009, 2019, 2021. And then I was also able to access, data sets that NASA makes available in the public domain from the NASA Scientific Visualization Studio, the Solar Dynamics science team. So assembled then from data that is equal parts historical and contemporary, 100,000 suns foregrounds the reality that the site, the observer, and the methods of observation and collection will produce multiple readings and avatars of data. So what I did was that I sort of thought about the entire work as 4 paradigms, or 4 ways that we could think about the ways in which we have recorded our nearest star over a period of 120 years. So I won't go into a lot of detail into each paradigm, but just to say that some of them is, the idea is that we're thinking about the way we have observed the sun by hand, pencil, photographic emulsion, glass, darkroom, paper, and voice. I'm just going to show you 2 minutes of the 4th paradigm, which is also my favorite. So that's the one that you're looking at on the screen over here. So I went to Kodai Canal during an annular solar eclipse in 2019. So what you're going to be seeing is footage of the eclipsed sun, which was caught in the beam of a 60-meter tunnel telescope at the observatory underground, which is layered with the voices of eclipse chasers who have devoted their lives to standing in the shadow of the moon.
Realized that what was happening out there in the immediate cosmos was actually a superset, and we were one subset of it, and there's probably a greater subset below us. It kind of emphasized that the lay of the land, how things it kind of doubly emphasized the fractal nature of the universe to me. But what was happening there, those things speaking volumes, was in fact actually reflecting a consciousness whose own thoughts were bound by the parameters of darkness, which actually is not there. The moon is not dark, right? It's just in the background of the sun. It becomes the most intense darkness once seen. I've never seen a black shining. I mean, that seems to be a contradiction of terms. Can we paint a black like that? No. Can we talk about it? I don't even think you can articulate it. Because at the end of the day, that eclipse represents, in many ways, a slant, a conceptual slant of the way we are.
Last year, I spent 3 weeks at CERN. as part of a residency, and of the many, many, incredible things and the people that one, met and the kinds of research and practice one was introduced to, one of the incredible things were, of course, the CERN archives. So in the early part of the 20th century, a new frontier in photography was developed through experiments in particle and nuclear physics, and bubble chambers such as the one you're looking at on the left, which is a replica which is now in their garden, Gargamel, was used to record and investigate fast charged particles such as neutrinos at remarkably high spatial resolution. So by far the most abundant particles in the universe, neutrinos, are born in the hearts of suns and stars. So in conjunction with the film, the other work that was on view in San Francisco at the Minnesota Street Project Foundation was a new installation in fabric, which was sort of my attempt at the kind of crossing through the body of a star, right? So the idea was that you would move from the subatomic or the interior of the star all the way to its outer edges or to its atmosphere. So what you're looking at is essentially panels of silk, which have been printed with a digital collage that I have created. And it's 7 fields, right? So the idea is that you have these 7 fields which take you on a kind of journey through scale and time. The first one, as I said, has images of subatomic particle collisions. The actual images of what you're looking at is I worked on small pieces of copper, which is almost like paper. So I burnt that, I embossed on it, I drew on it, and then once that was done, it was scanned in, and then these collages were created, and then they were printed out at this incredible print studio in Oakland. Shoot, I'm going to forget the name now. I will come back to that. But this incredible print studio in Oakland where we produced these incredible silk tapestries. So the idea was sort of to create a kind of, sort of something that would juxtapose the film, almost like one that is so rich, with thick and, with research and with time. And this one was far more material, much more tactile. So I'm going to switch frames slightly now. And then coming back to this question of, if wonder is about seeing the world as if for the first time, as framed by Sarah Ahmed, the strange asks us to take that and turn it on its head and ask again, what if? And I have been very interested in this question for a long time. So if you think about all of speculative fiction, if you think about science fiction, at the heart of these things is the question, what if? And I'm interested in that because I think the speculative, I think horror thrives on the improbable, that kind of moment when the unexpected comes in and forces you to pay attention. And the minute you ask the question, what if, it immediately opens up many more interesting questions about all sorts of things. So for instance, human-planet relationships, gender, AI, etc. A lot more becomes possible. So this brings me to the next body of research that I'd like to share with you, which among many things has something in common with a series of books of which I'm a huge fan, specifically Jeff Vandermeer and his Southern Reach trilogy, which he wrote in 2014. You're seeing a page from the first book on your screens right now. So this is like a spectacular piece of eco-horror, right? Where the natural world is both under threat and simultaneously threatening. And the plot of this film, I won't give you any spoilers, but essentially just to say that it is a story of first contact, like a lot of science fiction, right? Except that this first contact is not with an alien species, but in fact with a zone, which he calls Area X. This is an entire landscape, the boundaries of which are marked not by a border, but by a shimmer. And we later realized that this shimmer has shockingly, horrifyingly refractive properties, which affects everything, including DNA within its reach. So Vandermeer is at the forefront of what people are calling the new weird, eco-horror, ecological weird, because ecology is weird. And I think an awareness of what is happening with the planet requires a realization and a recognition of this weirdness, which may well be uncomfortable. So his books offer one possible perspective of what the world might look like if the lines between us and nature were less clearly drawn. And this genre of fiction is exploring a much darker, deeper side of ecology. So I'm going to show you 2 works which are part of the same series. You're looking at a piece called Genetic Drift, which is a family of 3 symbionts which share a few similar antecedents, but are also deliberately distinct in their primary genetic morphology. So I'm interested in this idea, and I have been in a long time, on these kind of large-scale wall-based works where it feels like the landscape is active, right? It's an active, cognizant landscape that is looking back at you. So pushing against the idea of a passive nature. So this one is a nature that is simultaneously idyllic, uncanny, threatening, seductive. And it's something I've been working with for some time now. So what you're looking at is essentially a print. Again, as I said, this is something that I have built in like Photoshop, and it's made up of images. I have a collection of images, so I'm obsessed with botanical gardens and nurseries. So I collect images of plants. It has scans of drawings, scans of prints, etchings, etc., also images that are available in the public domain. And then that is printed out on a vinyl, right? So the vinyl is then stuck onto the wall. And once that happens, and this is the third in the symbiont, once that happens, I kind of make the drawing disappear into the wall with acrylic, with paint. And then I continue to draw on the wall to kind of create a sense of proliferation or contamination that extends beyond the edges of the work. So this is the third of the symbionts. And as you can see, each genetic base is slightly different. So this one, the first one was pitcher plants, flowering plants. This one is frog and snake. And this is a view. So you can see that actually the print just disappears into the wall. You can see the edge of the vinyl over here, and then it's overlaid with color pencil, acrylic, and drawing on the wall. These are just some more details of this piece. Before we jump into the last work, which I'm going to show you, I need to give you a little bit of background into what we're looking at. So I've been working with video feedback for quite some time now. So video feedback is a process which I'm sure many of you are already aware of, but in case you're not, it's essentially the optical equivalent of audio feedback. So the way you take a head, what is it called? Shoot, a speaker, a mic, and you put it near a mic. So what am I saying? A mic next to a speaker, correct? And you get that awful reverb. So this is exactly the same thing, except that it's optical. So what you're looking at is a handheld camera that is plugged into a TV. So that means that if I was to point the camera at your face, let's say your face would be on the TV, right? But what you do is you point the camera at itself. So what happens is you get an infinite number of reflections, the same way as if you had two mirrors facing each other. So what happens is that if you are able to control the ambient light, if you're able to set up the right kind of conditions, you can create forms that start to mimic forms that you would see in physical, chemical, and biological systems. And what's incredible is that these are entirely generated within the loop. They're not imposed from the outside in any way. So I'm just going to give you an example of basic video feedback. So this is just me holding a handheld camera pointed at a TV, right? What is amazing about it is that the morphological changes you're seeing, so, circle becoming triangle, becoming pentagon, becoming whatever, this is all happening because my hand is moving the camera. So I love that this is also an extremely embodied process. If you just leave the camera and the TV, nothing much will happen. This is a very chaotic, very dynamic process. It's very difficult to create the same behavior twice. But this is an example of basic video feedback. This one on the right, I don't know if you can see, maybe you can, hopefully. This is the TV, and what I've done is I've made a box with two mirrors, right? So there are two mirrors at right angles to the TV. So now what happens is that you're setting up an IFS, an iterated function system. So you're basically generating fractals. And then you start to see much more complex forms. You start to see cell forms, tree forms, bacteria forms. So what I do then is that I basically shoot a whole bunch of this kind of footage. I dump it into a software, which in this case, I work with Adobe Premiere Pro. And then I chop it up into pieces and I build the work like a backward jigsaw puzzle. So with pieces of layering, pieces of moving video are then layered in a vertical timeline, and then you create the work. So I'm just going to share one most recent piece with video feedback. The title of this video, which is about, I think, 14 minutes, is called Glasshouse Deep. And it's basically thinking about what happens when you take the very minute and you make it assume a planetary scale. So I worked for this. This was commissioned by the Busan Biennale. And I was working with images that were collected by the Korean Institute of Ocean Technology of diatom specimens, because they study diatom movement in the South China Sea. So I was given images of these diatoms, and then I overlaid them with video feedback. And I'm interested in how these two things mirror each other, because diatoms, of course, are the most incredible things, right? They are algae, but so that means that they photosynthesize and they use sunlight to create energy, but they also have a urea cycle, which is a feature that they share with animals. And then scientists believe that it's possible that this is something that they've inherited through some kind of horizontal gene transfer from marine bacteria. So they are these incredible chimeric creatures, part animal, part plant, and they have the most extraordinary glass silica exoskeletons, so they have the most incredible radial and bilateral symmetry. And they're also called the jewels of the sea. So the work is essentially thinking about telescoping in and out, which is something I'm interested in, the very small, as I said, assuming a very large scale. It's also about trajectories of light, trajectories of migration, and things like that. And what I'd like to do is I will end with just a short, again, 2-minute video of just a small excerpt of Glasshouse Deep. The sound is also something that I work on sound as well. And the sound for this piece is something I've been interested in for a long time. So I'm a big fan of Gustav Holst's Planet series, and this is one recording of Venus, which is available in the public domain. So what I did is, of course, the sound also sort of echoes this sense of depth and coming through. So I'm just going to play a little bit of this. Thank you so much. I'll take questions just as well, So construction has started next door. So I'm glad I stopped when I did. Now those you'd have lots and lots of like crazy background sound now. Yeah, thank you so much. Hope I wasn't too fast. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Very nice presentation. Questions? I have a question. You started out as a printmaker, right? You studied printmaking in England. So printmaking is about physical things, and now you live in the digital world. So what prompted you to study printmaking, and how do you feel a transition to the digital world?
Actually, the strange thing is that I feel like printmaking has directly influenced the way that I work in video and in other mediums. So the reason that I was interested in printmaking is I was very bad at the whole editioning thing, right? So if you're a printmaker and I studied etching, lithography, silk screens, but I was very bad at making an edition, a perfect edition where every print was the same as the one before. What I was very interested in is the iterative quality that the plate makes possible. So you have the plate and then you have the print. But the idea that you have this plate from which you can keep printing on a surface, that's something that I started to explore when I was doing the MA. So there is a point where if you keep printing on a surface, form vanishes, but if you continue past that threshold, somehow pattern emerges again. So that's actually how I began looking at processes of emergence, this side of interest in chaos theory and things like this. But then when I found video feedback, actually. I was trying to figure out how to make temporality visible because I worked in digital prints after as I was studying in my MA, and then I would realize that you work in like 200 layers, but then you print it out and then it's flat. So how do you make layering visible? So I came across a do-it-yourself kind of guide to video feedback. And when I started making my own video feedback, I realized this is a language that I understood because it was very similar to at least the way that I understood printmaking. So in fact, those ideas of iteration, of repetition, is actually something I still continue to work with, whether it's in video or even in sound, for instance. But yeah, that's a great question. I do feel it all starts and began with printmaking.